Hello, good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here with you, and thank you very much to the organizers to have invited EASO in this meeting. So maybe a few words about myself. So François Merfait, I work now as a liaison officer in Brussels, but before that, I was part of EASO from the very beginning, and for like about 5 years, I was in Malta in the headquarters, responsible for the unit in charge for training and for the practical tools to try to improve the asylum processes in different member states. And I've been, between March and July 2016, I've been nominated by my director at that time to be sent in Greece to coordinate the development of the hotspots just after the EU-Turkey deal. So I have kind of experience at that moment, particularly between March and July 2016. Now, the presentation I will do, in a way, is quite easy because many things have been already said this morning. And in particular by Henrik Nielsen from the Commission. He made a very, in my opinion, good overview of all the topics, including what involves directly EASO and the link as well with Dublin. I will say a few words about that later. So what I will do now will be to zoom in on some aspects of it, giving you maybe some insight about some statistics, some types of challenges we face, etc., in the development of EASO and the role that we could play or we try to play in the context of this crisis. Globally, but that you know already, the way for the EU to respond to the situation of the crisis was laid out in the European agenda on migration, including in particular the creation of the hotspots approach and the relocation scheme. And later, as I mentioned already, there was the implementation of the EU-Turkey statement. The objective of the hotspot approach was to ensure that persons would be swiftly identified, registered, and fingerprinted, allowing for rapid referral to asylum procedure for those in need of international protection, but allowing as well for the possibility of a fast return for those who were not found in need of this international protection. And the hotspot approach goes hand in hand with the relocation of persons in clear need of international protection based on the distribution key, but we already discussed that this morning, so we'll not at this moment develop more. So now let's see more concretely what EASO, the way that EASO has responded to the 2015-2016 situation and crisis. For that, I start using my PowerPoint here. Okay, this is about the mission of EASO. We'll not go in detail. You can find that more or less everywhere. Here you have to have an idea of what EASO is at this moment in 2017. We have a budget of about 80 million euros. We have a staff of about 220. I can explain later how this is distributed. We've trained to the EASO training curriculum more than 17,000 participants already. We develop a lot of projects of country of origin information, more than 9,000. And we have quite a lot of experts deployed at the moment. I will be a bit more precise in a moment about Greece and Italy. But at this moment, for instance, we have 420 experts deployed in those countries. In the focus points, but I will really, in my case, just address the third and the fourth that you have in this list. Permanent support, again, I pass, you can find that on many documents of EASO. Special and emergency support, support to the hotspots, information and analysis support, and third country support. Again, I don't have time enough to go into detail here. Here I'm entering already in the situation of operations. That means, in particular, that was the topic of the day, so the crisis, and in particular what happened in Greece, Italy, and the way that it worked with the entire EU. And so since 2015, to respond to this situation, EASO has focused on its operation and has dramatically increased its operational capacity. In Italy and in Greece in particular, to live up to its responsibility under the EU migration agenda. And I can maybe just give a very small anecdote, is that I was in fact more or less at the same place here talking to your conference, but 2 years ago it was in Trier, and it was in October 2015, and that was just before all this started. And when I see the way that we've done until that moment, until now, with programs like Relocation, like everything which came in the hotspots, EU, Turkey deal, etc., it's been sincerely a lot in 2 years. I'm not saying that everything was exactly as it should, but it's been a lot. So how do we work there? We work with operating plans. So EASO has to negotiate and agree with the host member states on a plan which will foresee precisely the objectives, the conditions of deployment of the experts. Again, I will not go too much into detail here. What's important to say is that the host member states have always the end responsibility for all the activities which happen in their country. So they remain sovereign, but we support them as much as we can. Here you have a list of different types of activities that we do in the hotspots, but again, probably you know this, so we provide information, we register applicants for international protection. In Greece, and I will go a bit more in detail in that, we conduct as well eligibility and admissibility interviews to support the Greek Asylum Service. We play a role in the relocation program. We have some role as well in supporting unaccompanied minors. Now there is a new development, for instance, in Italy about this, and we have support hotlines. Okay, what else are we doing? We see here cooperation with the main stakeholders in the different places. We provide effective communication tools for the hotspots. We inform the public, we try at least to. And now I will give you some facts. This is about relocation. Again, I will not spend too much time on it. It was already mentioned this morning by Henrik that now we've reached more or less 30,000 of people who have been relocated both from Italy and from Greece. This was the figures you see now were the initial targets, which have not been reached, but again, Henrik has explained the context. So this slide shows the number of persons who have been relocated so far. So it's above 30,000, more or less 10,000 from Italy and 20,000 from Greece. Now, going more specifically in the activities that we have in Greece, there we have 7 locations. In particular, and I think that's very specific to what we do in Greece compared to what we are not doing for the moment in Italy, is really to support the Greek Asylum Service, so the Asylum Authority, to process their asylum cases. And so we are first involved in what we call the admissibility scheme. But since more or less June last year, we started to be involved as well in what we call the eligibility, meaning as well the process of the claims on the content of those claims. Important to say, that was mentioned by UNHCR just before, that, okay, if you apply this concept of admissibility, you need to do it following certain safeguards, and one is to have a systematic individual assessment of the case, and you need to have then an appeal following, etc. So we try to guarantee those rights. We can have discussion about that later. So every case has to be treated individually and upon its own merits. There were even discussions, but I don't know where it is exactly, where we could be even more associated to the work of the Greek Asylum Service, more generally. So not only in the context of the border procedure, as it is in the hotspots, but that EASO could be even involved more generally in the asylum process in Greece. But I don't know if this proposal is going to be adopted. Just for you to have an idea of different measures that we have in the operating plan between EASO and Greece, but again, this repeats a bit what I've said before. So if you're interested, anyway, I think you have a copy of my presentation in your document, so we'll not go into detail here. I was telling you that at this moment in Greece, we have more than 331 persons in Greece at this moment. And the majority of them are in the hotspots. We see 240 persons are in the hotspots. Important to say that more or less half that number are interpreters, because of course we cannot work there without having a suitable number of interpreters. Maybe it allows me as well to mention something which I find personally particularly important in the way that we work in Greece, is that in the Greek law, they have accepted that the procedure takes place in English. That means the interviews are done in English, and that's how EASO can really support them at that moment. But anyway, we have a lot of interpreters. For the rest, again, I will not go too much into detail on. We have as well recruited temporary workers from Greece who are helping us because we have a lack sometimes of member state experts to be deployed. That was mentioned this morning as well. And so to compensate for that, we got the possibility to recruit locally experts. Most of them are Greek, but not all of them. And they work under the EASO umbrella to as well support the work in the hotspots. This is about the implementation of the EU-Turkey statement. To give you an idea, this year in 2017, we have performed, so EASO-related people have performed about 6,000 interviews at this moment. And right now, not right now, sorry, on the year 2017, we've had in total 271 member state experts deployed and 41 interims. The member state experts, of course, they can be deployed sometimes for 3-4 months, but the interims are more stable. In terms of measures that we put in place to try to enhance the quality in the processing of cases under the asylum border procedure, there is the aspect of training. So we try to prepare the experts before they are sent to deployment. We have as well put in place a mechanism for quality review of interviews and concluding remarks and vulnerability assessment. And this is in cooperation with the EASO headquarters, the Department of Asylum Support. We have a dedicated query system for the hotspots operation, meaning as well query on, for instance, specific questions on country of origin information. And we have as well a setup, we have set up a help desk in Athens for the quality review of interviews and remarks and assessments. Okay, in Italy, and I will be shorter because I can guess that my time is passing fast. In Italy, we are based in many places, but the situation is quite diversified there. So we are in 32 locations. Again, I will not pass the list. You have it in the document. And there what we do, we support Italy with the provision of technical and operational assistance. And in those areas like provision of relevant information to applicants for relocation, but let's say this is about to be finished. We have mobile teams for information provision deployed in many locations. We handle the registrations of applicants for international protection, in particular for the relocation program, but as well for the Dublin Tech charge request. So we really play, I think, a significant role there, helping to try to operate those family reunification under Dublin. Here you have a map where you can have an idea of where we are deployed in Italy. I will not go into detail, only to tell you what's in the box underneath, that at this moment we have 55 EU plus countries experts, in Italy plus 71 cultural mediators and some other staff members of EASO. For you to have an idea of the volume that we are, we have roving teams in Italy in 45 locations, but again, I pass this. We have opened a dedicated hotline as well in Italy for information provision. So that's just to speak about what we've been doing in the last 2 years until now. Yes, for Italy, I should have mentioned as well that we had an amendment to the operating plan, which was signed on 31st July of this year, which introduces a new measure to be implemented in cooperation with the Italian Ombudsperson for Children and Adolescents. And this is to strengthen the capacity of the Ombudsperson in implementing protection measures for unaccompanied children. So, kind of a conclusion about what we've done so far. We see that the approach where we are engaged in is a very multi-actor approach in the hotspots, and for the relocation it was the same. First, between the different EU agencies, like EASO, Frontex, Europol, working in close cooperation to support the frontline member states. But as well, collaboration with other important stakeholders like UNHCR, like civil society, like IOM. And what I can say here as well, and I will make a bit of publicity, everything can be improved, including on the way that we involve civil society in the operations, like in the hotspots. And we will have a dedicated meeting of the consultative forum, the annual consultative forum of EASO, that will be here in Brussels on 17 November, and you are, of course, welcome to register to it. For the future, will and how EASO be involved in the future, like a new agency called the EU Asylum Agency. We find, of course, it will be very important that the new text, which was described already in the big lines by Henrik this morning, the new text, the new regulation is very important. It will give us more tasks, it will give us more responsibilities. It will as well give us more capacity in terms of operational agency. So the new agency would be capable of providing the necessary operational and technical assistance to the member states, increasing practical cooperation and information exchange amongst the member states, monitoring and assessing the implementation of the CEAS and the capacity of asylum and reception systems in member states, and very important, enabling convergence in the assessment of applications for international protection across the EU. I can zoom maybe just a bit in some of the aspects. There is the aspect of the reference key in the Dublin mechanism that was mentioned already this morning. So EASO would be very much involved normally in this corrective allocation mechanism. Another important aspect in the future EUAA is the monitoring mechanism, where in close cooperation with the Commission, the agency would monitor the operational and technical application of the CEAS with the aim to prevent or identify possible shortcomings in the asylum and reception system of the member states. Then another aspect would be to develop operational standards, indicators, guidelines, and best practices on the implementation of the instruments of Union law on asylum, and as well indicators for monitoring compliance with those standards. There will be the continuation of the development of the EU asylum training curriculum. We would as well develop country guidance on COI, meaning not only collecting the information on the country of origin, but as well to present the way that we suggest to use this country of origin information. And then, as I said, we would have more capacity in terms of having, first, EASO staff would be really increasing a lot. In some documents, we see that from the 200 we are now, we would extend to 500 by the Horizon 2020. But next to that, we would have as well the possibility to take experts from an asylum reserve pool. That's a commitment from the different member states to give a certain number of experts where EASO could take what is necessary to face a specific situation. So as a conclusion, we can see that with the political context right now, it seems that things are slowing down. Well, we've heard again a bit Henrik this morning. So, of course, we would be very pleased to have an EU asylum agency adopted as soon as possible, so we would have all the means to really adapt our operations and even develop new types of operation. However, as long as this new regulation has not been adopted, we believe that with the present situation and the present regulation and the different measures, we can already do quite a lot. Maybe where we are a bit less in the position to perform is the monitoring aspect, because there we need to see how much that would be already possible for member states to accept that we play this type of role at this moment. But anyway, indirectly and as kind of soft power agency, that's a bit what we do already by the development of training, etc., where we really try to pass messages to different member states. I will stop here. I could say many more things, and I don't know on the slides what I've missed. Again, you will find more or less, I guess, the equivalent of what I said in your documents here. And that's it. Thank you very much for your attention.